and rainy today. As you can see, Ralph is not looking his best at the moment, and yesterday he got in a fight with Robert, the white cockerel. Yeah, I know, I think you probably won. And you can see he lost his other spur. So there was a lot of blood, but he seems okay. I've come out for a walk to collect some moss for the bulbs I'm going to plant, but I just wanted to show you down here there's a little oak sapling, and here, and over there. Now this, oh, there's a big one there. Now this branch here, this silver birch, or birch rather, branch dropped off a couple of years ago, and as a result the tractor hasn't mown over it, so you can see it's a little kind of island, if you like. This field gets mown once a year, topped as we call it, and obviously anything you know, in amongst the vegetation gets kind of, it doesn't get, you know, raised to the ground, but it does get mown pretty low, so down to sort of 4 or 5 inches. But you can see that this because of this branch, it's become a little tree nursery. It's absolutely chock full of little oak trees and some brambles. And it just goes to show that actually we think about, you know, planting things, but sometimes all it takes is a bit of protection rather than us actually doing anything. It's more about leaving stuff alone. And this branch here has enabled all these little trees to get established. There's some more. And some of these are a few years old now. So this branch has extended the field, or rather it's extended the field margin to include these little trees. And the footpath goes along there. And we've got a little sort of island here. See from the weather it's not a great day for walking, or certainly not fungus spotting, but I have seen a few little mushrooms. I've been out collecting some moss for the bulbs, like I said, that I'm going to be planting in bowls and things, and but it's lovely to come out here on a day like this, one because there aren't any other people, and two, it's just very much, you know, very full of the season, if you know what I mean. Now there's lots of little fungus bodies popping up from the ground, and that is obviously the fruiting bodies of the massive important underground network that links all the plants in this area. And there's been some interesting studies about just how important these fungal hyphae, the sort of network of little tiny filaments that go between the trees and the other plants and exchange nutrients and, you know, feed each other. And I'll see if I can find some information about it, but it's absolutely fascinating. And this time of year, when you see the actual mushrooms popping up, it's a real sort of joyful expression of how important that little you know, sort of network of underground filaments is to the whole plant ecosystem. I've got some bulbs here from a company called Peter Nissen, who do insecticide-free bulbs, which is really good because it means they're good for the pollinators from a sort of nectar and pollen point of view, but they're also good because they don't have any sort of systemic insecticides in them. So I've got a sort of variety here. I've got some crocus, which I'm going to put in the ground in the garden, but I've also got some paper white narcissus and some, well, amaryllis, even though they're not technically amaryllis, but that's what we all call them. So I've got a white one here and a scarlet one here. Now you can either use sort of regular terracotta pots or any sort of pots to put them in. They don't need a lot of kind of soil, they really just need something to anchor their roots in, because obviously all the food for the plant is in the bulb itself. So we just need something, A, to kind of look decorative, and B, to kind of support the roots and the plant structure. But they don't need a huge amount of soil, so you don't have to, even though they're quite a chunky bulb, you don't need to worry about sort of, you know, they're not going to be around for that long. They just last until they flower, and then they get, I don't think you can even grow these on actually, but I might check that. So I've got a couple of different vessels here. I've got regular terracotta pots, but I've also got, if you're anything like me and, you know, quite clumsy, you'll end up with all sorts of kind of chipped crockery to use. So I've got this lovely barrelware jug and a pudding basin that is a bit crazed, and I chipped it the other day. I've got a big bowl here, and also this kind of cut glass thing I found at the charity shop. So I'm going to just put a little crock in the bottom, which is just a bit of old broken plate. I'm not going to worry about putting crocks in the bowls and jugs and stuff. It's much better to just kind of water them really infrequently. You're highly unlikely to kind of, you know, waterlog them, so they don't really need to kind of drain. So I'm just going to pop a couple of crocks in the bottom here. And I've also got this longer one here, which I'm going to use for doing the paper whites. So I'm going to do the amaryllis in the larger pots and the paper whites in the sort of lower, flatter ones, because I think they'll look quite pretty. So I've got some peat-free compost here, which I've mixed with a little bit of grit. You don't have to worry too much again about sort of drainage. It's just it's more to sort of lighten the compost really. So I'm just going to pop the compost in here. Now the bulb needs to sit about you need to bury it down up to about a third of the way up the bulb. So I'm just going to pop it in and then sort of pack it in around the roots. I would do this outside, but it's absolutely bucketing with rain. Ned, you'll enjoy eating all the dirt as well, won't you, young man? So it's nice and sort of firmly in there. I've packed it fairly well. And as you can see, that's sort of quite nice and firm there. I'm going to pop it in here just so I can give it a quick water and it doesn't leak all over the table. So I'm just going to, you don't want to sort of saturate the bowl, but I just want to wash some of that compost off. So I'm going to give it a water, just let that drain through. And meanwhile, I'll do another one in here. There we are. So I've just kind of potted up my bulbs and wiped the sides of them. So obviously the ones in the pots. Thanks, Ned. You okay? Let's jump on the sofa then. So the ones in these vessels don't need to sit on any kind of plate or tray, whereas these ones, because they've still got the hole in the bottom, they will. Now if you want to slightly sort of prettify, and if you've got enough space around the top of the bulb, you can get some moss, which is what I was collecting earlier, and just sort of pull it around and arrange it around the top of the pots, just to sort of slightly prettify it and make it look a little bit more rustic. It's also quite a good idea because then when the moss starts to dry out, you know that you need to give it a bit of a refreshing drink. So it's quite a good way to just watch for that as well. Now this moss is actually quite long. It'd probably look prettier if I had slightly sort of less exuberant moss, but I think that's quite fun, so I'll pop that one there. I haven't really got room around this one. I suppose I could try, have a bit of a go, see if I can fit some. It's basically just to sort of cover up the compost and you know, as I said, just to sort of conceal the and stop it drying out too much, and just make it look a little bit better. Looks like it's having a bad hair day. I know that feeling. These need to go onto kind of a cool windowsill, just until they start to shoot. There's one tiny little shoot coming up on here, so you know, about sort of 20 degrees C. You know, maybe in a north facing windowsill, in a, you know, maybe kind of not unheated room that you have, but you know, you don't really want it sort of in the lounge where it's might get a bit hot for them. And you just need to wait until you see shoots starting to come up, and then you can sort of bring them into, you know, where you want to display them. They will need a kind of a stake in them at some point, so you know, get a little sort of twig from somewhere just to, because they make a really tall flower with quite a large sort of trumpety flower. So I'm going to put these to one side and get on with the paper whites. Just thinking of the dog, you've got to be careful obviously that dogs don't get hold of these. Certainly not inquisitive puppies. So I've got, again, I'm not going to worry about sort of putting crocks in these vessels. And so I'm just going to, I've got 5, these are sort of those cellophane, plant-based cellophane wrappers. And I've got 5 in each one. And I think I've got a total of 20. Yeah, there we go. So I've got this little one here, this terracotta-ish one here, and this basin here. Now with the paper whites, you don't, you need to put them somewhere dark, cool and dark, for about 6 weeks. Don't let any light get to them, so you need to kind of cover them, otherwise they'll send up little shoots and they're all sort of weedy and etiolated. So yeah, so bear in mind the vessel you're putting them in, where you're going to be storing them, so that they don't get, so you can actually put them somewhere dark in a cupboard or whatever. And also where you're going to end up having them on display. So I'm just going to put some earth in these. This has got holes in the bottom, so I've just covered those up with a couple of crocks. And so again, a bit like with the amaryllis, we just need to sort of bury these a little bit more. So I'm just going to put a layer in, then sit the bulbs. So I'm going to put 4 in here and then cover them a little bit more, just their little tops are poking out. I'll then cover them in some moss as well, just to keep them a little bit more dark. Again, not too much, but just enough to sort of settle the compost in around the bulbs. There we go. So I'm just going to carry on and do that with the other containers. There we are. So here are my paper whites. I've got a big tub. There's about 12 in there. I think there's 5 in here and 4 in there. So I need to put these somewhere dark and cool and these somewhere light and cool. So I'll go and put these up in my art room, and I've got a cupboard in the art room as well where these can go. So just, put a reminder on my phone to check on them periodically. Sorry, Neddy's crying in the background. What's the matter? I'll come and sit with you in a minute. He's a bit of a princess. Yeah, just keep them sort of lightly watered. Obviously you don't want anything to rot, but you don't want them to dry out either. So just keep a bit of an eye on them really, but they're really straightforward and they will bring the most amazing scent, the narcissus anyway. They'll bring the most amazing scent into your house at a time when there's very little else around, and they're lovely and bright sort of harbingers of spring. So I will keep you updated on how these go. I'm going to make some flatbreads using the green pea flour, which I've used before in pastry, and I'm going to do it in my KitchenAid, and this is a recipe out of this book, which is one of my faves, and they're just really yummy. My daughter Rosie wants to make a flatbread kind of pizza, which is, you meant to use wraps, but I thought, well, I may as well make some flatbreads. And I can't really make any cakes or anything sort of like that at the moment because I haven't got any eggs. So I'm just going to make these. They're really simple and straightforward, really quick and easy. They don't have any yeast in them. They've just got baking powder as the raising agent, and you just mix up the dough, rest them for a little bit, and then you roll them out and bake them in a hot, dry frying pan for a couple of minutes, and then they're done. So I'm going to get on and weigh out the ingredients. I'm going to make a half quantity because this makes, actually no, I might make the full amount because it only makes 4. So there's another recipe in there which makes a few more. So I'll just see how much flour, pea flour I've got. A little bit short on pea flour, so I'll just make it up with the ordinary flour. I'm using bread flour, but you can use plain flour, but bread flour is all I've got. So how many do I need? Okay, so we need 200 grams of flour in total, so I'll just make it up. Then I need a teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and I think that's it. Yeah, then just 50 grams of water. Mix that up. So it's all mixed up now, and it needs to knead for a little bit, so I just left it in the machine with the machine running for about 4 or 5 minutes, and it's now a lovely ball of nice smooth dough. So I'm just going to leave this to rest, let the gluten in the flour build up a little bit, and then I will divide it up and roll it out into the flatbreads. It's had a little rest, so I'm just going to divide the dough into 4. They're not very even. Right, and then I'm just going to, on a lightly floured surface, I'm just going to roll them out as thin as I possibly can. Now here I've got a, Neddy, leave it. I've got a frying pan which I've got on to heat up, and I've also got this, which is it's a pizza peel, well, a sort of bread peel, and it's really handy for using things like flatbreads because it means you can just pop them on here and then flip them into the pan. So I'm going to roll out the little balls of dough, get them a little bit round first of all. You can't really see in this light, but they're quite a pleasing kind of green colour. close the vlog. It's got hiccups. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you next time.